Hello and welcome back to the second episode of the Oasis podcast. Alright, today we have a very MCU focused type episode today. We're going to be talking about the first reactions for MCU's next Marvel show, Miss Marvel, coming out June 8th. We have the first reactions of the first two episodes, and we'll be talking about that. On top of the new trailer for Thor Love and Thunder coming to theaters July 8th. And I will be giving my thoughts on what Gore looks like, what I think of the trailer, what I think is going to happen, so my predictions, and everything Marvel related I think I'm going to cover in this episode today, because I also have an idea, some things I want to bring up in this episode that I feel like we should talk about when revolving around Marvel Phase 4. But without further ado, let's get into it. We'll talk about Miss Marvel first, because I feel like Miss Marvel is right now the easiest topic to talk about and the shortest topic to talk about. So, if you guys are unaware, today, Wednesday, May 25th, certain critics got to see the first episodes of Miss Marvel, MCU's new Disney Plus show coming out June 8th on Disney Plus. They got to see the first two episodes. Their reactions are that the show is, quote, charming. But here's the thing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for Miss Marvel? Personally, I've been saying for months, Miss Marvel does not seem like a show for me. A show that I am probably going to watch. I'm probably just going to either skip it or just, watch what happens on a 10-minute YouTube video instead of wasting half an hour of my life watching it. But if it is good and people are like, you gotta watch it, then maybe I'll give it a try. But without further ado, talking about the word charming, is it a good review or a bad review? Well, in my personal opinion, I think charming is a cute word. It's not like, wow, this movie was so good, it's charming. I think it's more like, it's charming. It's got its moments, I'm guessing. It seems as though it's not a good show. I've heard that it is on par with Hawkeye. And I saw Hawkeye. And me hearing that it's charming means that it's probably not a good show, but it's probably an okay show, which is kind of what I was expecting from what I saw with the trailers. The trailers definitely made it seem very Disney Channel-esque, but not a good Disney Channel show. So the reviews, for me, line up with what I thought Miss Marvel was going to be originally. Nothing that I think brings me into, wanting to watch the show. It's given me probably exactly what I was expecting. People are just like, oh, it's charming, I guess. It's good. It's on par with Hawkeye, I guess. But again, I didn't like Hawkeye. I didn't really like Hawkeye. God, my hair is in my eyes all over today. Sorry about that. But yeah, I didn't really like Hawkeye. I thought Hawkeye was pretty boring. I thought it was better than Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think by far Falcon and Winter Soldier is the most boring MCU show that they have put out to date. So I would put maybe Miss Marvel falls at the bottom. Maybe in between Hawkeye and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Who knows? I will be watching the first episode though. Don't get me wrong, I'll probably end up watching the first episode just because I'm like, I got nothing else to watch, because I really don't have anything else to watch right now. So I will probably be watching the first episode just because. But if, I choose to, I might not and just stick with watching Kenobi. But with that out of the way, we'll talk about Thor Love and Thunder, because Thor 4 is definitely the movie I think a lot of people are looking forward to. But let's be honest, I think it is. I say it sarcastically because I think that we all have heard about Thor Love and Thunder. We've all heard that the movie is not being taken seriously. Unless it's a way of throwing us off, but based on what the director Taika has said, it is a movie he is not taking seriously. He is saying like, oh, it'll probably be done the day before the premiere. Like, oh, it'll be done when it's done. It's just like, it seems very lazy. And there's a scene in the trailer where you can actually see a green screen in Thor's helmet. That's just me being nitpicky, but it just seems like if you're not going to take the movie seriously, why should I trust that it's going to be a good movie? I have a theory that it's not going to be a good movie. Because again, I just think that if you, the director, do not take a movie seriously, something you were paid to do, something you personally have done, and it's your work, your art, being put on a screen for millions of people to see, and you're not taking it seriously, means that either A, you do not have faith in the project, or B, you don't care, and we shouldn't care either. But with that out of the way, and what I think of Thor Love and Thunder, the trailer makes the movie look really good. And I say makes the movie look really good because Doctor Strange, we all said when the trailer came out, wow, this looks really good. It's going to be a great movie. And it got hyped up through the roof, and then we go and see it, and oh my. Yeah. It wasn't good. Let's just say that. It wasn't. I'd put it on par with Ant-Man. And Ant-Man is probably a C-tier movie. It is a C-tier movie. And to put a movie that is supposed to be a big movie, like Endgame level big, that they were hyping it up to be, and have it end up being a C-tier movie, it's like, why? Like, it's just like, if that's the best you got, Marvel, maybe reevaluate what you're doing with Phase 4. I'm ranting into stuff I want to talk about later, but I think Gore, even though he does not look like the comics, I love that it's all practical. I love that it's all practical effects. It's not CGI. It is Christian Bale, just in makeup. I think he looks great. I love his voice. I think he's going to be a great Gore the God Butcher. And I think he'll probably be one of the best MCU movie characters of all time. Without a doubt. I see, based on what I have seen, I think Christian Bale, probably one of the greatest actors there are right now in Hollywood, is going to crush this role. And it is going to be so good to see it. Like, I love the voice he uses. Like, this, like, kind of dark, sinister voice. He's like, my vow is to kill all gods. Like, ooh, it looks so good. It looks so good. He looks fantastic. I cannot wait to see more of his character. I just hope that Marvel doesn't do what Marvel does. And if you've watched Marvel enough, you know what I'm going to say. They better not kill him off at the end. Because Marvel has this thing that they like to do. They like to introduce these really good characters, these really cool characters that we love, and we're like, we can't wait to see in another movie. And it's just like, they just kill him right there on the spot. Just, you're dead. And it's like, well, I wanted to see more of that character. I wanted to see this character, like, get away and, become something more, or come back and fight again. Like, I just really hope we keep Gore. I really do. I really hope. Like, but yet again, it's up to, like, oh, is that something Christian Bale wants to do at the end of the day? But I really hope they leave it open-ended and are like, hey, you know, we'd love to have you back as Gore, so would you think about it? And he's like, yeah, I'll think about it. And they don't kill him off. Because I don't think they should kill off such a great character with such a great actor. With my predictions for this movie, I think it is pretty obvious what they're doing. I think Marvel is losing their touch, and I think it's very obvious. From the start, we already know Jane gets cancer, and she's going to use the hammer. It's going to be just like copy-paste from the comics. And I know how she gets cancer. She's going to get cancer from the blip. That's how it happens. They're going to say that she gets cancer from the blip because she blipped. She was like, oh, it's only, how long has it been? 3 years? He said, no, 8 years. So she obviously blipped. There's a 5-year difference for a reason. The blip was 5 years. So, obviously, she gets cancer from the blip. Unless she already had cancer. But I doubt it. I doubt that she already had cancer. So I'm guessing she blips back and she gets cancer. When she gets that cancer, it'll be just like the comic. She'll be like able to use Thor, but when she uses Thor's hammer, or Mjolnir, uses the power of Thor, whatever you want to call it, she will obviously be able to not have that cancer. She's not going to have cancer. But the thing is, when she goes back to her regular self, she's obviously that cancer will have grown more. It's a give and a take. And I think that she is going to have to choose between dying and saving the world. No, I said that wrong. Dying or giving up the power of Thor to stay alive. Because they already said that Natalie Portman isn't going to be Thor, the MCU's new Thor. Which is weird to say because I think that's a lie. I really, really do. Especially with what they've been doing lately with Phase 4. I definitely do not believe that for one bit. Because I think that we actually see the end of the movie in the trailers. Like, I get that there are scenes that I'm about to explain that look like they're from earlier on in the movie, that connect with scenes that look like they're from earlier in the movie. But also, Marvel is known for doing CGI and mixing things around and all that stuff. And I think Thor retires at the end of the movie. And this is how I think it happens. I think that what happens is Jane is going to get the hammer, she gets cancer from the blip, and then we're going to cut back. We're going to get the same Gore backstory that we got from the comics, but the question is, are we getting the Necro Sword, or are they going to call it something else? Because I know that Sony owns the rights to the symbiotes, so they can't really say they're symbiotes, or it is, you know, the Necro Sword, because the sword is basically, you know, the sword of the symbiotes, pretty much. Like, shit, what's his name? Oh, what's his name? What's the name of the king of the symbiotes? Give me a minute. Let's see. What's his name again? Null. I knew it. I was like, it's probably Null, but I was like, it can't be Null, right? Like, it's not, right? But it is Null. It's Null. So I think it's up to, you know, does Sony want to play ball? Does Sony want to play ball with Marvel? Or do they want to, you know, not play ball with Marvel? Because at the end of the day, I think Sony has not done much. Sony has not done much with the character of Spider-Man's, has done enough with the Spider-Man characters to the point where, you know, we should, you know, really, like, care what they're doing. I have yet to see Morbius. Like, I really just don't have an interest in seeing it. What am I doing here? don't know what I'm doing. I'm getting distracted. That's what I'm doing. I'm losing my train of thought too. Shit. I'm getting distracted because I'm losing my train of thought. But anyway, I don't think Sony is gonna pass up on the offer to work with Marvel, because based on what I've heard, they have a lot. They're losing. They're down bad, and they need Kevin Feige basically. But the question is, like, how much better is Kevin Feige to Sony? Because let's be honest, the MCU Phase 4 has not been the best. It is definitely not as good as we thought it'd be. So it's like, where do we go from here? Do we call it the Necro Sword? Do we go all in? Or, like, do we show Null? You know, are we going to see Null? Because what I don't want them to do is we go see Thor Love and Thunder, and we get Gore's backstory, which we obviously will, and they make a character look just like Null. Just like Null. And then they change him. Change his name. Like, if you're going to go as far as making that character look like another character, just call him that character. Like, Sony needs to stop being a bitch sometimes and just work with Marvel. Marvel knows what they're doing. Marvel is clearly better at making a cinematic universe than they are. Morbius. Yeah, Morbius was just a dumpster fire, apparently. I saw the post-credit scenes, made it more of a dumpster fire. CGI was bad, based on what I've seen. But, back to Thor. He gets the Necro Sword, whatever they want to call it, and he goes to hunt down the gods. And I think the attack on New Asgard, the scenes we see of, like, these black creatures that are made from the Necro Sword, that work for Gore, that's in the like first half of the movie. I guarantee it. It's very early on in the movie, and I think New Asgard will be wiped out. I think that there will be very, very little survivors, if not no survivors. And I honestly am leaning towards more of there being no survivors and having Valkyrie, Korg, and Thor being the only survivors left on New Asgard, because of how dark this movie seems. This movie seems to be heading, like Doctor Strange, into a darker side of Marvel, which they need to be doing more of. I believe 100%. They need to go darker. They need to go darker 100%. Because we're getting older. The people who have been watching Marvel since day one are getting older. And they need to start realizing that and not be so afraid to tap into the darker side or making darker movies for Marvel. Because, well, Marvel is starting to become like, I'm not saying that content-wise. I'm talking fan-wise. Marvel is like Star Wars. Star Wars has very adult fans. We are full-grown men. Star Wars fans are grown men, or they are very, very young children. But mostly very grown men. And Marvel's starting to become that, you know? And so they need to start realizing that they are not making content for children. They are making content for grown men. And I think Star Wars has started to realize that with their newer shows like Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett. Like, those shows are kind of dark sometimes. They get dark. They, not like super, super dark, but like, they have darker elements to it. And more adult-themed stuff to it, like politics and stuff like that. Stuff kids don't really care about. So, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I think Marvel needs to start growing a pair, go dark, and just have at it. Because I think they could thrive a lot more. So I think New Asgard's done. goes up in a heap of flames because of Gore, which sends Thor on this mission with everybody, including Jane. Obviously Jane goes because, yeah. But they go out on this mission to find Gore, or find whoever did this. And they start, they end up at Olympus, obviously. I don't think they spend a lot of time in Olympus. I think what happens is what we see in the trailer. They fight, Gore shows up, kills Zeus, and then leaves. Or tries to kill Thor, and Thor gets his ass beat brutally because Gore is on a completely different level than Thor, comically and just in every way, shape and form. Gore is on a whole nother level, which makes me think, what are they going to do at the end of this movie? But I think I have an idea for that. So then, after Olympus, they go try and find Gore. They eventually find Gore. If anything, maybe we get hints at other mythologies. Maybe we get a Khonshu reference or something. But I doubt it, because they didn't connect Moon Knight to anything in the MCU. But after that, they go and they find Gore. Then the final battle happens. It's like, ooh. They fight, you know. And then this is where I think people are going to get really upset. Thor kills Gore. I don't think that'll happen, but knowing Marvel, it probably will. Thor is going to kill Gore, and it is going to be something that divides the fans, because Thor has never, well, I don't want to say never because I don't remember completely, but I want to say that Thor has never been able to kill Gore. I know that they did the comic where it's young Thor, middle-aged Thor, and old Thor all fought Gore and lost throughout. They've all lost. So I want to say that Gore is just on a, well, he's on a completely other level than Thor is. So I don't think Thor will be able to beat Gore. And well, I'm gonna redact what I said earlier. Maybe, half of New Asgard gets wiped out. Now I'm gonna stick with all of Asgard gets wiped out early on in the movie. And then after that, what happens is Gore gets defeated somehow, probably by some bullshit that's probably the power of friendship and love, because it's called Thor Love and Thunder. I swear, I'm calling it out. Disclaimer, right here. I'm seeing it right now in the future. Gore gets defeated by the power of love. Watch. You say it's stupid, oh, it's stupid, they're not gonna do that, that's not possible. Watch. Calling it now. By the power of love, Jane Foster and Thor are gonna magically defeat Gore, because Gore is heartless and doesn't have anybody that loves him, so he loses because he doesn't have love in his heart. Watch. Because Marvel likes to do this thing now where the villains get defeated by realizing their flaws, which is total bullshit. Because let's be honest here, if we don't need superheroes to fight the villains anymore, why do we have superhero movies? Lately it's been a trend where it's Marvel has the villain defeat themselves by looking in the mirror and being look at what you've become, and it's oh my god, I'm a villain, wow, I'm so bad. Maybe I'll go kill myself and crush a mountain on top of me. And so, they go do that, and then the movie's over. And then the main character that the movie is named after has nothing to do with that. So, at this point, if they do that with Gore, they should just make it the MCU, the Mirror Cinematic Universe. And it's a 5-minute movie, 5-minute MCU project, where the superhero shows up with a mirror, puts it down, and goes, look what you've become. And then the villain goes, wow, I'm a villain, and goes and kills themselves. The end. I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. It'll be like, you have no love in your heart. And he's like, oh, I'm a terrible person. And then goes and kills himself or something. But then after that, Thor realizes, like, oh, you know, maybe I'm not that good of a hero, or I'm not the strongest Avenger, because if I was the strongest Avenger, New Asgard wouldn't have died, and all of these gods wouldn't have been murdered, you know, and he can't take it anymore. So then he retires. And the fun thing about Stormbreaker is it can open up the Bifrost. And if you know where I'm going with this, then if you know that, then, or know what the comics very well, you probably know where I'm going with this. Thor plants, what we see is Thor planting Stormbreaker. I guarantee you that's the end of the movie. I am pretty sure that's the end of the movie. He plants the Stormbreaker into the ground and makes the World Tree. I think that's what it's called. Well, the World Tree, that's what it's called in Norse mythology, so that's what I'm going to call it. The World Tree that lets everyone travel through the 9 realms. I think he's going to plant Stormbreaker and create the 9 realms. Well, he's going to make the World Tree so that way they can travel through the 9 realms and whatnot. And then he will retire. And this is why I say that the MCU is going to make Jane Foster the new Thor. Because why would you introduce this character for no reason, for one movie, unless you're actually trying to set up the new Thor? Because Marvel's been doing this in Phase 4. Phase 4 has literally been the replacement of original characters. It is literally, we got She-Hulk. But that is obviously going to be Hulk's replacement. But here's the thing now. Marvel's trying to be woke about it. They're trying to make a all-female Avengers. And I think it's kind of whack. Not gonna lie. I think that Marvel shouldn't be I saw this and it made me laugh. Someone's not calling it the MCU, they're calling it the MSHU, because they're making all-female characters. Which is kind of true. Like, with Scarlet Scarab, you know, like all these shows introducing female versions of the characters. We got Sylvie, we have Scarlet Scarab, we have Mighty Thor. Like, they're all going to be ending up replacing certain characters. So Thor's going to retire, and then Jane will stay Mighty Thor and have to battle cancer and all that stuff. Or Jane dies at the end of the movie due to cancer. Those are the 2 endings that I have. Those are the only 2 endings that make sense in my head. Because, or Thor dies, but I doubt they're going to kill Thor. Because it'd be the most least emotional thing that ever happens. Because Thor has already lost so much in the MCU, to the point where if he dies, like, to him, it'll be a relief. It'll be like, thank God. You know? Like, I finally get to join my brother in heaven. And I swear, if Loki shows up in this, like, Marvel clearly does not care about their writing or the things they set up. Because you explicitly say Loki cannot... Jesus. Somebody stop throwing your shit under my bed, bruh. Stop barking. Take your stuff. There you go. Marvel's explicitly made a rule that anybody from any time cannot just jump over into a new time because it throws everything off. I get that, oh, it's already happened, shit's already gone whack, so it could happen, but still, it's like, if you're going to establish these rules and then throw the rules out the window, why should I care about the rules? Or why should I watch Marvel projects that explicitly explain the rules of multiversal travel and the multiverse? Like, it makes no sense. If you're going to have rules, put those rules into place. Like, I don't get what's so hard about that. Like, if you're going to travel, if you're going to set rules, set rules. So I don't think Loki should ever appear ever again in the MCU. I think that he should stay in his own show, but at the end of the show, I am 100% certain that he will be returning back to 2012. Because if he doesn't return back to 2012, how in the world is he going to, put everything else into motion? Like they explicitly said that he is a villain that is never supposed to be happy, but instead lifts other characters up to be where they need to be, or makes other characters happy because he is a constant hurdle that people they constantly hurdle over to reach where they need to be, or become as strong as they need to be. Like, he's a setup character. That's all he is. So I don't think Loki will show up. I don't think he will. I think that he should just stay dead, and Marvel should just, keep him in his show. And that's it. But yeah, anyway, Thor dying would not make any sense at all for the character. The only justice that character could have is retiring as a hero and just being done. Because, how much left are you going to do with Thor? You've told the same story 8 times. You clearly have nothing to do with the character. The story of self-discovery, this is did it in the first one when he was trying to have to lift Mjolnir. He had to go find himself so he could lift Mjolnir. Second one, nobody fucking remembers the second one. I think he had to go nobody remembers the second one. Third one, he had to go find himself, and that way when he found out who he was, he could, not have to use the hammer. But then that doesn't matter because in Infinity War they completely just forgot about that, and we're like, no, he needs a hammer to use his power still because, he didn't learn anything from Thor Ragnarok, and so he has to go find himself so that way he can muster the strength to activate the thingy-mabobber so he can make a new one. And then in Endgame, he has to go find himself so that way he can stop being a coward fat ass that's eating and drinking all day, so he has to go find himself. Let's see. Thor 1, Thor 3. This is the 5th time. The 5th time they're giving Thor the same character arc. So if you are giving your character the same arc for the 5th time in a row, you clearly have nothing else to give this character. And if you don't have anything else to do with this character, get rid of him. Kill him, have him retire, replace him, something. Because I can tell you right now, Thor retiring, having Natalie Portman take over, will be the greatest choice Marvel will ever make for Thor. Because they clearly don't have anything to do with this character for the last 4 or 5 movies that he has been, that have really, established a character arc for Thor. Come on. And I think a hero battling cancer, but then also has to choose when to be a hero, because when they become a hero, makes their cancer worse, is a way more compelling story than just, oh, this character's gonna go find himself. Each movie is, a way better, more suspenseful film, in my opinion, because then you have maybe the villain finds out her secret, oh, she's secretly battling cancer, and that the cancer becomes worse when she becomes the hero, and the villain uses that to his advantage, and so then you as the viewer are like, oh shit, does she power up? Is this her moment? What is she gonna do? It's more engaging than being I've seen this story before. I've seen this before. You're just using a different villain, different planets, and you're adding new characters, and it's just a completely different time and setting. I've seen this movie before. I watched it 5 years ago. It's just, if you have nothing to offer in a character, don't keep him around. Basically what I'm going to say. And I think we can use that to phase into our last topic of today, which is, does Marvel stop after Phase 4? Because they're going nowhere. They're making a bunch of random projects that don't connect at all just to make money. So, do we need to call it the MCU? Because they're pushing out 9 projects. 9 projects a year. That is too many projects. And this is where I have leaving it off to you guys and what you think. I saw a video that said, and I agreed with this, Marvel should stop with increasing the number of projects they're doing a year, because they only have Kevin Feige. They only have Kevin Feige overseeing these projects. And the shows and, well, the movies in the Infinity Saga had a lot more heart and a lot more passion in them because there were only 3 coming out a year. And it was easier for Kevin Feige to be hands-on and manage these projects. And that is completely true. And you can tell, if you watch older Marvel stuff and newer Marvel stuff, you can tell one was more, taken care of and nursed and thought through, than the other one was just kind of a shitty pizza that you just kind of slap together, throw in the oven, and toss out to the world for someone to eat. Like, should Marvel stop? Or does Marvel realize, hey, maybe we should just go back to the old formula? But instead, you do maybe 2 movies and 2 shows. You still have that 4 project a year limit that you've been wanting to keep. And you get to make engaging projects for Marvel fans to enjoy again. And they're good and stuff people enjoy, and not walking out of a theater like, I just wasted $15 on that. Like, God. And only having like 1 or 2 movies that people walk out of like, I'm glad I spent my money on that. I'm glad I saw it in theaters. Like, the last movie I think people cared about was Spider-Man. That was the last one. But that's not saying much, because, it was Spider-Man then Doctor Strange. But still, it's like, I don't think a lot of people are going to walk out of Thor like, wow, this is the greatest MCU movie of all time. Or, wow, they really cared about this movie. Because the director doesn't care. They're making 9 projects a year, so they're obviously not like, taking care of it like, maybe take a different approach. Because based on the story alone, they don't really care. They're not really, thinking about what they're doing. They're like, yeah, we'll do that, let's do that. But in reality, it's like, you've already told that story. So, I end this podcast with a question. Simple question. You can leave your answer down in the comments. You can use that question to discuss with your friends. What does Marvel do from here? Does Marvel go back to the old formula? Or do you think Marvel should keep the new formula? Or does the MCU end? Leave your thoughts down at the bottom. This has been the 2nd episode of the Oasis podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. And do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave your comments down below of what you think is going to happen in Thor Love and Thunder. Is Thor Love and Thunder going to be a good movie? And what is the answer to the question? Do you think Marvel should go back to the old ways? Let me know, and I'll see you next time in the Oasis.